This podcast is made possible by the listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's February 24th, 2025. On this day in 1803, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a decision that set a precedent we are very much feeling these days. I won't get into the weeds of the Marbury v. Madison case, but suffice it to say, it was a conflict regarding a new law that President James Madison did not want to carry out. And sorting through the particulars of that case, the nation's high court ended up really hammering out how the court system does its part in the nation's system of checks and balances. It established a concept we now call judicial review. And that's what's at play anytime someone files a lawsuit to protest the constitutionality of a law or an executive order. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee, with some historical context for the news from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. President Trump started out this term in office by signing a slew of wide-ranging executive orders, and right now quite a few of them are caught up in the courts, with dozens of lawsuits triggering that process of judicial review. We've seen it on the state level as well. You might remember the legislative session a couple of years ago when the General Assembly passed law after law meant to rein in Nashville and Memphis and let state officials make more decisions about how Tennessee's largest cities are run. Every one of those laws was challenged in court, and the judicial review process ended up deciding which would stand and which did not pass constitutional muster. Sometimes it's clear that the president, governor, or legislature being challenged truly believe their initial decision was totally in the clear. They're surprised or bothered by the lawsuits and might even tell us they think it's a pointless exercise because, of course, this is the right thing to do. And how could anyone think it isn't constitutional? But something we've also seen a lot recently are bills submitted to the legislature that seem to be begging for judicial review. The trigger for these kinds of bills seems to have been the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade and opened the door to abortion bans in states. Seeing that happen seems to have lit a fire under conservatives who feel the time is finally right to establish new interpretations as the definitive line in the sand on their pet issues. So again, they introduce bills that clearly butt up against existing precedent. Again, they want to be sued. They want that court review because earlier courts didn't agree with them, but this time they think it'll go their way. Here in Tennessee is the proposed amendment that would write into the state constitution the concept that life begins at conception and extend the right to due process to embryos and fetuses. Or the bill to outlaw shipping medications used in abortions to Tennessee. The bill to let public schools appoint religious chaplains. The measure that seeks to make it a human trafficking felony to harbor or assist people who are in the country illegally. That one would also give the state the right to dissolve any organizations found to have done so. Oh, and don't forget the law passed during the special session that makes it a crime for local officials to adopt so-called sanctuary city policies. And then there's the bill encouraging public schools to post the 10 Commandments in classrooms, and the bill that would let public schools opt not to enroll undocumented students. The measures on this list, and believe me, I could have included more, are issues where you can pretty quickly find existing court precedent that clearly says what's being proposed is not constitutional. They're either old concepts that have already been through judicial review in a previous generation, or just similar enough to earlier laws that were struck down. For example, that bill about not enrolling undocumented kids in public schools is in direct opposition to a 1982 Supreme Court decision, Pyler v. Doe. It found that keeping immigrant kids out of school violated the Equal Protection Clause and pointed out that undocumented children are likely to remain in the states as adults, and so it's in a state's best interest to educate them. But that was a different court with different justices. And right now our lawmakers are living by the old maxim, if at first you don't succeed, try again. In just a few minutes, we flip through the vinyl stacks at the Nashville Public Library. That's coming up after the newscast.
Nashville Public Radio is always here to keep you informed, whether it's the latest news or music you should check out. Every week, What Were Wednesdays shares the latest happenings taking place right here in Nashville by talking to members of our community, putting on events in your neighborhood and beyond. So tune in to What Were Wednesdays every Wednesday, and you can always find events at WNXP.org/events.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. A federal appeals court says a lawsuit challenging abortion accommodations in the workplace can proceed. The suit is led by Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti and the Attorney General of Arkansas. 15 other states have also signed on. They're challenging a policy left over from the Biden administration that allows workers to ask for time off to get an abortion and to recover from the procedure. A federal district judge dismissed the case back in June, ruling that the states did not have standing to sue. Last week, the Eighth Circuit Court disagreed, allowing the case to move forward. The accommodations for abortion were folded into the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, which received bipartisan congressional support in 2022. That allows accommodations for pregnant workers and pregnancy-related medical conditions such as time off for doctor appointments, lactation support, or in the event of a miscarriage. Attorney General Skrmetti says adding the abortion language turns the law into, quote, an ideological weapon. Federal courts have temporarily blocked the Trump administration from slashing medical research funding, but the cuts could still happen. WPLN's Catherine Sweeney reports that some Tennessee congressional Republicans support the budget cuts, even though the state could lose millions.
Tennessee gets about $700 million a year in grants from the National Institutes of Health. The Trump administration's plan is to drastically reduce the portion of that funding that covers indirect costs, like electric bills and support staff. Leaders at the state's top research institutions, including Vanderbilt, Meharry Medical College, and St. Jude, pleaded their case to the state's congressional delegation. They called the cuts devastating to biomedical research. They also point out that current funding levels already fail to cover costs, and that universities are often on the hook for hundreds of millions of dollars a year. The Knoxville News-Sentinel contacted several federal lawmakers about the budget cuts. 2 Republicans, Senator Marsha Blackburn and Representative Diana Harshbarger, say they support the cuts and that researchers need to be more efficient. Catherine Sweeney, WPLN News.
Tennesseans pay more expensive electricity bills than residents of other states, according to a recent analysis by the group Think Tennessee. That's despite the Tennessee Valley Authority keeping electricity prices lower than the national average. A big part of the reason that Tennessee residents face such high bills is due to limited energy efficiency programs, which TVA recently cut for multiple years. Tennessee ranks among the 5 highest states for average electricity consumption. Ultimately, this means residents are paying more for their monthly bills, with the highest burden placed on low-income families. Some people pay as much as 30% of their income on utility bills. The new sales tax that Nashvillians started paying this month is starting to reflect changes to the city's bus routes. The tax was part of the city's transit referendum, which voters approved in November. It proposed a complete overhaul of the city's transit system, such as faster buses, more sidewalks, and new traffic signals. It'll take about 15 years to execute. But some things are moving. WeGo has implemented new changes because of the tax. This summer, 7 different routes will run more often. In fact, most will operate 2 times more frequently. The Access on Demand program, which provides vans for people with disabilities, will also add weekend service. WeGo is asking for public comment between March 12th and April 3rd before the changes are officially approved. If you want to look at the complete list of changes, you can go to the WeGo website. Nashville is no stranger to growth, but it also prides itself on a sense of hospitality. David Plazas is the Opinion and Engagement Director for the Tennessean. He shares on This Is Nashville how newcomers can sustain the city's neighborly culture.
We are a big city. The one thing that I hope that we are very sensitive to is that this is also a place where people will pick up the phone when you give them a call, where people will be hospitable, people want to make introductions. So we haven't lost that sense of hospitality. And that's one thing I know that a lot of people fear is that if we become too big or grow too fast, that we'll lose that sense. The question is, when people come, will they also take that same energy and spread it and pay it forward, so to speak?
Tune into This Is Nashville today at noon to listen to the full episode or download it wherever you get your favorite podcasts. ABC has given the green light to a new television series called 911 Nashville, and Deadline reports the drama will likely be shot here in Music City. The 911 franchise is produced by television powerhouse Ryan Murphy. The original show is set in Los Angeles. The first spinoff, the Texas-based 911 Lone Star, was recently canceled. The most notable scripted series filmed here was another ABC network show about the country music industry called Nashville. That aired for 4 seasons until it was canceled in 2016. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. How do you build a vinyl collection that reflects a city's taste? That's the task the Nashville Public Library took on last year when it started a record collection with $15,000. Now you can check out vinyl from any library branch. But what did they choose and why? WNXP music reporter and resident record collector Justin Barney investigates.
I am at the Madison Library, checking out the vinyl section. Wow. Weezer's Make Believe. Truly an underrated Weezer album. Zach Bryan. Big Science by Laurie Anderson.
I met this guy, and he looked like he might have been a hat check clerk at an ice rink. Which, in fact, he turned out to be.
Sade. Slater Kinney Dig Me Out? Hell yeah. Beyonce's Lemonade. Talking Heads stopped making sense. I do love this album, and I do not own it. Heaven is a place. Herbie Hancock Maiden Voyage.
When I heard that the library was starting a record collection, my first thought was, who's buying those records?
I'm Noelle Rutherford. I'm the Material Services Manager.
Because the records you buy say a lot about who you are. So there is somebody who's forming the identity of Nashville through this record collection. Who's got that gig?
The Materials Management Committee did, I would say, the majority of the selection.
Record collection by committee. Of course. But I was thinking of it wrong. I was thinking of it as a personal collection. But this is everyone's collection. This is our collection. And who better to curate that than a team of librarians?
I'm not a music expert, but you don't have to love music to be able to select music. You have to be able to do research. Librarians are very, very good at research. We looked at the best of. We actually went through old-fashioned books.
So they got their list. So where do they go?
Where do you buy? You're like, okay, we got $15K to start a record collection. Let's go to Grimey's.
Unfortunately, we can't do that. We have to go through Metro procurement rules and policies.
So what does that look like?
Well, right now it's Amazon temporarily. But if we expand this collection, we need a contract. And, we would encourage local businesses to apply.
Records bought on Amazon by librarians who did the research. Now we have to check out a record. The actual LPs live in 2 locations, 2 identical collections. One is in Green Hills and one is in Madison. You can rent records at any library location. They're all in the catalog digitally. You can put them on hold. But there's nothing like flipping through the stacks. And I checked out in Madison.
Hi.
Found some?
I did.
Can I have your card, please? Thank you. And these will be due on the 28th. Return these to any branch. So have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Record in hand, and there's one more test. Playing it over dinner.
The record looks great. Let's drop the needle.
get to the bar. Name of the bar. The bar is called Heaven.
What a perfect dinner.
The band in heaven, they play my favorite song.
It's actually pretty sick because as a collector, I have, of course, way too many records. And so this is a really good system to just like have something you're excited about and listen to it for a bit and then return it and not have to cart it around for the rest of your life.
At the end of the day, I was wondering how the collection would represent Nashville. And I forgot that I am Nashville.
We want the customers to tell us what that personality should be. If we have a lot of demand for country, we're going to buy more country. On the other hand, if they want more heavy metal, we're going to buy heavy metal. I really believe strongly that customers help drive this LP collection.
We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday, so subscribe in your favorite podcasting app to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you like this, you'll probably enjoy the Nashvillager newsletter, too. You'll get perspective from more of my colleagues at Nashville Public Radio and links to the stories we're following. Sign up for those daily emails at WPLN.org/Nashvillager. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.